technology we use, it means that we might be able to pick up the fact there's a transmitter out there. That's the name of the game, and that's what we're hoping to do. It means that we sacrifice getting the message in order to at least prove that there's somebody out there.
You're listening to Widdershins podcast, where we take the ultimate sci-fi themes found in books and movies and discuss them with the world's leading scientists, engineers, and experts. This week's podcast is brought to you by our sponsors and preferred retailers, Wordery and the Book Depository. And the book whose theme we're reflecting on this week is Invasion of the Body Snachers by Jack Finney. Considering we are talking today about alien invasions with Seth Shostak, this is sure to be a really applicable book. It is set in a peaceful town of Mill Valley in California, where Dr. Miles Bennell discovers an insidious, horrifying plot. Silently and subtly, almost imperceptibly, alien life forms are taking over the bodies and minds of his neighbours, his friends, his family, the woman he loves, and the whole world as he knows it. The link to Invasion of the Body Snatchers can be found in the show notes. My name is Amy Rose, and in this episode I have a conversation with Seth Shostak. I first spoke to Seth very, very early on in the Widdershins podcast in season 1, episode 4. Seth is involved with the research for intelligent extraterrestrial life at the SETI Institute in California, trying to find evidence that there's someone out there other than ourselves on other planets in other solar systems. He is also committed to getting the public, especially young people, excited about astrobiology and science in general. He hosts the radio show podcast, The Big Picture Science. Thanks so much, Seth, for coming back on Widdershins podcast. It's been a long time since we had a conversation in season 1, episode 4 on aliens and technology. Today we're going to have a conversation about alien invasions, and I thought you were the best guy to speak to because, well, I heard your TED talk pretty much guaranteeing that we're going to see aliens in the next, decade or 2 decades.
So the question is, what fraction of these planets are actually suitable for life? We don't know the answer to that either, but we will learn that answer this year thanks to NASA's Kepler Space Telescope. And in fact, the smart money, which is to say the people who work on this project, the smart money is suggesting that the fraction of planets that might be suitable for life is maybe 1 in 1,000, 1 in 100, something like that. Well, even taking the pessimistic estimate that it's 1 in 1,000, that means that there are at least 1 billion cousins of the Earth just in our own galaxy. Okay. Now, I've given you a lot of numbers here, but they're mostly big numbers. Okay. So, keep that in mind. There's plenty of real estate in the universe. And if we're the only bit of real estate in which there's some interesting occupants, that makes you a miracle. And I know you like to think you're a miracle, but if you do science, you learn rather quickly that every time you think you're a miracle, you're wrong. So, probably not the case. All right, so the bottom line is this. Because of the increase in speed and because of the vast amount of habitable real estate in the cosmos, I figure we're going to pick up a signal within 24 years. And I feel strongly enough about that to make a bet with you. Either we're going to find ET in the next 24 years, or I'll buy you a cup of coffee.
So I was fascinated by what you had to say, and obviously I reached out to you to interview you on this topic. But Seth, I really want to talk about how you got to this point, because it's not every day that someone goes from being a normal person, no offense, to basically hunting down signals from aliens. So it's an honor to have you here, but can you tell me a little bit about your story and how you became, I think, the director of the SETI Institute, but I'm not quite sure. Please fill me in. I've been following you for a while, and I've got mixed bios from online sources. So please fill me in.
Well, actually, it's not quite my title. I am senior astronomer, which I think probably is more a reference to my age than to anything else. But well, I had studied astronomy in school, actually, physics and astronomy. And, I had quite a bit of experience
actually learning more about galaxies using radio telescopes around the world, actually. But in about 1990, I had moved back to the United States. I was living abroad. I was living in Europe at the time, working at a university there. I moved back to the United States. Some people found out that I was here. They called me up one night and said, hey, look, the SETI Institute is here in town. Turned out to be the same town I was living in. That was total coincidence. They said, you want a job here? And they asked at the right time. So I did take a job here. And so that's quite a bit of time ago, getting close to 30 years now. But I've been here ever since. And again, probably because my background was in astronomy.
Can you tell me what really excited you originally about life outside of planet Earth? For me, it's because life on Earth isn't as exciting as what could possibly be out there. But what got you excited originally?
Well, most people around here, if you say aliens, it can be ambiguous. It's just, the Latin word for somebody from someplace else, an outsider. But when you talk about space aliens, everybody's interested in them. I mean, you just go into a classroom of kids that are, 8 years old or whatever and say, how many of you would like to meet an alien or something like that? They're all interested in aliens, and I think that they're hardwired to be interested in aliens. They're all interested in dinosaurs, too, because, your brain is wired up to pay attention to anything with big teeth, and dinosaurs have big teeth. So, and I think the same is true of aliens. Your brain is wired up to make you pay attention to any strange creatures out there that might be competitive with you or might harm you or might marry you or whatever. So I think everybody's interested in aliens. And I was interested in aliens. And when I was a kid, I would go to the movies every week. And a lot of these bad movies that I saw, they were mostly bad looking back on them, although they seemed perfectly good to me at the time, were about aliens. So, all that stimulated an interest.
Okay, here's the big question. Have you had any signals back yet? Or are you able to confirm that you've maybe heard something a little bit suspicious from possibly an outside planet or solar system?
Well, we're not going to hear anything back because, remember, we do not broadcast. We only listen. So, but we might hear something, and it wouldn't have been in response to anything we said. It's just somebody said, sort of like you're standing at a party against the wall. You're not saying anything, and somebody finally comes up to you and says, hey, Ralph, what do you think of those hors d'oeuvres? Or something, right? So that's what we're hoping, that somebody will talk to us. And we haven't heard anything. I mean, we get signals all the time. That's not the problem. But we haven't yet heard anybody that's conclusively, somebody with a transmitter on a planet around another star. Not yet. But, you could have asked Captain Cook, hey, found anything interesting lately? And it had only been 2 weeks underway, and he wouldn't have found anything interesting. But after a while, he does.
Okay, here's the juicy one. Another juicy one. What do you mean you hear signals? I feel like we just brushed over that one a little bit too fast. So can you please elaborate?
Well, the technology we use, it means that we might be able to pick up the fact there's a transmitter out there. That's the name of the game, and that's what we're hoping to do, but we would not get the message, and that's because, any incoming signal we would average for minutes. We would just sort of, it would be like making a time exposure with your camera in order, to record a city's lights at night. You open the shutter for 30 seconds, which is great, and then you can see the lights, but you don't see, for example, somebody turning their house light on and then off again, right? It's just, you get sort of the average light coming from that house light. So it means that we sacrifice getting the message in order to at least prove that there's somebody out there. Now, if we were to be able to do that, if we were able to show, hey, Bob, there's a transmitter up there, then, of course, I think there would be enough money spent to build a really big antenna, maybe in Western Australia or some other place that's, not being heavily used, and actually, look for the message.
Okay. And how do you think we can plan for an alien invasion? And another question too, because you are a reference point for so many movies and TV shows, and people come to you when they want guidance on communicating with aliens. So how do you think we're going to be presented or make contact with aliens? Do you think it's going to be hostile or peaceful? And how do you think, as an expert in this field, how do you think we should prepare for contact, given lots of us think that it's going to be a little bit hostile and a bit of a war of the worlds?
Well, if they actually came here, yes, I agree with you. If they came here, I would just get out of town. I mean, if they can come here, yes, they must have some reason for doing that, because it's really hard to do. And you can't be sure that they just come down here to read us Klingon poetry. They might have other things in mind. And whatever it is, you're not going to be able to stop them. I mean, in the movies, you can always stop them. But in reality, it would be like, I don't know, the Maori trying to, stop the British, stop the Europeans landing in New Zealand. They're not going to be able to do it. So it's kind of the same thing if they actually came here. But I don't expect them to come here, but you can't rule it out. It doesn't violate physics or anything. I mean, it might be a very difficult trip. So if the aliens actually came here, what I would do is get a lot of frozen pizza and head for the nearest mountain range and get out of town.
Oh, see, this reminds me of the whole you can run but you can't hide. I mean, they've got some pretty impressive technology to get here, so I don't know. Running to the hills, I don't feel so safe.
Well, yeah, you might not be able to escape, but it's certainly worth a try. I heard one guy at a conference say, look, the only strategy that has any hope of success against an alien invasion is to negotiate, right? I'm not sure how you do that, since, of course, they won't speak perfect English or anything, but, maybe make a deal with them. I don't know. I mean, I find it a little difficult to think that they would come all the way here just to wipe us out. I mean, that might be fun and all, but, is it worth the cost? I mean, it's very expensive. And, look, Zork, you want to go down to that little blue planet and wipe everybody out. We got better uses for that money. I mean, we could, make a couple of more reality television programs or something. I mean, there must be something else that they could do with that money than just coming here to wipe us out. But again, you have no idea what would motivate them to come to Earth.
Yeah, so I was thinking that if they're going to come to Earth, then they're going to have some pretty impressive technology, maybe faster than light, which you're probably going to disagree with. Many scientists do who come on Widdershins podcast, but I've had a few who say that it's possible. Anyway, they're going to have some pretty impressive technology, likely some weapons, maybe even lasers that they would use against us.
Well, could be. I mean, I don't know. To begin with, faster than light technology violates relativity, and that's so it's quite possible. I would say even likely that nobody will have that. It's just not compatible with physics. But the idea they're going to come down here and zap us all with a high-powered laser, well, I mean, that would ruin your whole day. I admit it. But it's again, when people first went to, I don't know, the Canadian Arctic, right? And there are people living there, all right, but they didn't go in there and just shoot them all. I mean, there wasn't much point in that. They asked them, where can we find something to eat? That was better for them. So I don't know. Again, how often do you go to a town you've never been to and, just try and kill everybody there because it's the first time you've ever been there? I mean, maybe you do it a lot, but probably you don't.
Yeah, we don't have a very good track record. I just can imagine a little bit of an Independence Day scene where we've got our military and shooting them down from space, not asking any questions and just going at it just so human-like. We just don't have a good track record.
I point out to you Captain Jim Cook, who's a fairly well-known person in Australia, particularly on the east coast of Australia. And he was under orders from the Admiralty to go map all the islands in the Pacific. So he was there to just go explore and find new places that no Europeans had ever been at before. And he was also instructed, but he didn't really need to be because this was his mindset anyhow, not to hurt anybody. He didn't hurt them. He just wrote them up. He said, okay, they got this kind of religion and they eat these kinds of foods and whatever their culture was. But mainly he was there to map all the islands. And he did that. I mean, he didn't really, over the course of his various voyages, some natives did get killed, but it was mostly, it was motivated by actions by the natives themselves. So that could have been avoided. But in general, he wasn't there to wipe them out. You tend to forget that that's how it mostly happened. Of course, it's much more interesting to read about those cases where they did wipe everybody out. But that very seldom occurred.
Well, this is one from the conspiracy theorists. Do you think, considering the aliens might be watching us from space and watching humans fight each other, that they are already on planet Earth and they're just being a little bit covert about it and secretive as to not get caught because they know that humans are a little bit aggressive and we try and kill anything that we don't really understand or we get a little bit psycho.
Well, if they are, they're being very secretive about it. In fact, they're being so secretive about it, it's the same as them not being here at all, right? If you go down to the Australian Museum in Sydney, and you look for that exhibit that shows evidence of alien presence here on Earth, you'll find it's a very restricted exhibit, right? And the reason for that is I don't think there's any good evidence that we're being visited. I mean, that would be wonderful, but I don't think it happens. When aircraft take off from the San Francisco airport here, very seldom do I notice that the pilots are worried that there might be alien saucers in their airspace and they should watch out for them. If the aliens are here, they don't do anything. They don't kill anybody. They don't help anybody. In my opinion, they don't even abduct anybody. They don't do anything except, they form, well, they're good fodder for, television shows, but, otherwise they don't do anything. That's a little bit different than, of course, when the Europeans landed in various countries that hadn't seen Europeans, because then they did do something. I mean, if you'd asked the Aboriginals of Australia, for example, in the late 18th century, do you think there are Europeans visiting you? They would have no doubt about it. I mean, they would just say, yeah, they're right down the street there, and they're causing trouble here, and they're building something down there, and whatever. It was very obvious. Very obvious. So I actually don't think the aliens here, because I think if they were, it would also be very obvious. But, there are a lot of people that disagree with me.
Yes, there are. We've got the Area 51 saga with the invasion of Area 51. Do you know much about the whole Area 51 stuff? Oh, actually, it's pretty safe to assume that you do.
Yes. I, in fact, just wrote a little article about this, which I suppose will be, I think it's on the NBC website. I don't mean to make an advertisement, but I think it'll be up there within a day or two. Anyhow, yes, somebody on Facebook had urged people to storm Area 51. Of course, he meant it as a joke, which it kind of is, but, more than 1 million people have said, yeah, we're going to do that. So, I mean, Area 51 is it's in southern Nevada. It's north of Las Vegas, and it's a military test site. So they have, secret planes and things like that they don't want you to photograph and so forth. So the whole place is surrounded by, fences and stuff like that, and you're not supposed to go in there. And if you do, they're probably going to stop you. but more than 1 million people say they want to go in there because they think there are aliens freeze-dried and stacked up inside of Area 51. Well, I actually know people who've worked at Area 51, and I've asked them, hey, any aliens there? They say, well, no, a lot of kind of interesting airplanes, but no aliens. But of course, the public would prefer to believe that there really are aliens there. And I don't think they're actually going to storm Area 51 because it's going to be, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's hot. There are no good restaurants. There are no bad restaurants near Area 51 except on the base, and they're not going to get to those. So and I think it's good fun, but it's like those who predict the end of the world. I don't think it's actually going to happen.
So you don't think that there's actually an Area 51 conspiracy going on? There's no aliens hanging out there?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry to disappoint you, Amy Rose. I know it would be much more interesting to think they're there, but, they could be. They could be hunkered down in Penrith too, but I doubt it.
Well, look, at least we still have SETI, right? So how about we talk about how far away you think making contact with aliens actually is? Because you said 10 years or 20 years?
I still say that, 20 years, yes. Even though I said that maybe 8 years ago, I don't remember. Yeah, maybe it'll always be 20 years. But no, the reason I said 20 years and why I still think it's possible, I bet everybody a flat white that'll happen. And the reason is that, the equipment for SETI keeps getting better. This is just because of the improvements in computers. I'm speaking to you from the Silicon Valley. And so, it's well known here in the Silicon Valley and everywhere else too, for that matter, that computers keep getting faster and faster at the same price point. And that's been going on for more than 30 years. That'll keep going for another, who knows how long. So that speeds up our search. And my 20 years was based on the fact that within 20 years, after when I made that bet, we'll be able to look at 1 million star systems. And I just think that if you look at 1 million star systems, you might pick up a signal from one of them. So that's why I bet everybody that flat white. I may have to buy a lot of coffee within 20 years, but on the other hand, maybe I won't.
Well, that brings me to one of my last questions, which is, what technology do you think is going to exist in about 20 years or 50 years, or a technology that a lot of us find really difficult to imagine, given that things are moving so fast? We don't even know what is around the corner.
Well, some of them may replace your mind. That's the real danger. But I think that there are two that are, of course, going to be mobile. I think, of course, are going to be most important for the 21st century that we're beginning now. The first is biology, and really understanding biology at a microscopic level, a molecular level, I guess I should say. And that means we're going to be able to, bioengineer house plants or whatever, so they glow in the dark. I have a couple of people nearby who are doing that. I mean, just for fun. Those are hobbyists. But more than that, you'll be able to cure a lot of diseases. We're going to see an acceleration in the ability to attack a lot of disease at a molecular level, which will be a great thing, of course. The other thing that'll come out of that sort of work, of course, is manipulating DNA. We can already do that. And it's more about the ethics now than the technology. So you're going to have designer babies. And, you might say, I don't want a designer baby. That doesn't sound good to me. But then again, if you're pregnant and, your doctor says, look, $50 more and your kid can have twice the IQ or something, or, bedroom blue eyeballs or something. I mean, whatever.
Oh, gross. Makes me feel sick.
You don't like you don't like eyes? Okay, well, all right, whatever. I can understand, but in any case, so that's going to knock your socks off. I mean, the idea of designer babies, and clearly, if you're a wealthy mother, then maybe you get a better baby than the people that don't have as much money. So there's going to be all sorts of conversation about that. But that's pretty predictable. I think that's going to be something you're going to see. I think actually more significant than that is artificial intelligence, and not artificial intelligence that plays, a good game of chess or poker or Go or any of these things, but artificial generalized intelligence, which can, have a award-winning podcast or write the great Australian novel or whatever. Something that can do anything cognitively that humans can do. And, we're not there yet. This is way beyond self-driving cars. This is, a machine that's as clever as your next door neighbor. In my case, that wouldn't be such an accomplishment, but it might be for others. So.
Oh, Seth, it's been so wonderful talking to you. Look, thank you so much for coming on Widdershins podcast again. It's been an absolute hoot, as always. Look, I look forward to speaking to you. Maybe in 20 years' time, we might revisit this conversation, or even beforehand. So it's been amazing.
Amy Rose, it's been a real pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode with Seth Shostak. Until next time, please subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. Stay safe, enjoy the company of your loved ones, and of course, enjoy the rabbit holes.